Hey everyone, welcome back to Spectrum Collections YouTube channel. My name's Hannah and today we'll be talking through our tips and tricks on how to blend eyeshadow. So if you want to learn more on this, then just keep on watching. So first of all, you want to ensure that you start with a blank canvas. So you want to get rid of any discoloration or veins on the eyes, so that way your eye is nice and smooth and prepped ready for eyeshadow. So we recommend using an eye primer before your eyeshadows. If you do tend to get oily eyelids, that will just help ensure that your eyeshadow will stay on longer, because when you start to get oily eyelids, it will start to break through the eyeshadow, and that's when your eyeshadow starts to move around and fade away. If you don't tend to have that problem, you can use a concealer just to get rid of any discoloration or blemishes, so you've got a nice blank canvas to start off with. So the easiest way I find to start off with blending eyeshadows is to set that base in place. So use a translucent powder or any skin tone colour powder over the top of that base, because what's going to happen is going to help your first eyeshadow blend that little bit easier, because the thing is, powder over powder is going to blend so much easier because they're the same texture, and it's going to be a lot smoother for you to blend eyeshadow over the top. So for eyeshadows, I'm going to dip into our OCEANA eye palette first of all. First colour that I'm going to dip into is Tide from the OCEANA palette, and I'm going to use that on our B07 brush. So the B07 is a tapered blending brush, so as you can see, it's tulip shape, so it's tapered towards the end. So the reason why this is really good for blending eyeshadow is because the tapered end will fit right into the socket of the eye, and then the outer bristles that are slightly smaller and shorter, they will help blend the eyeshadow. So at the same time you're applying eyeshadow, and those shorter bristles are helping blend the eyeshadow out. So our first colour is going to help our darker colours blend that a little bit easier later on. So when you're creating a kind of basic smoky eye, the best way I find to create that is by going in with a lighter tone of whatever colour you're trying to achieve. And you're going to start to get that gradient effect when you use a lighter tone first. So we're going to start off by popping that in the natural socket of our eye. So that is the natural contour of our eye bone. So basically when you tilt your head back, you can feel the socket bone right there. So let your brush kind of follow the natural shape of your eye. And when I do this, I hold my brush right at the very end of the brush, and that will just ensure you get a really nice, smooth application. We're tilting our head back, finding our crease, and working it back and forth. And then little circular motions. Just repeating that step a couple times. And then once you've got nothing left on your brush, you can then turn it on its side and just run it over the edges. And that will just ensure the edges are nice and smooth. Next, I'm going to go into the ZODIAC palette because I'm going to dip into the shade Nebula. So this is slightly darker than Tide, and this is just going to create a little bit more definition and start to create that really nice gradient effect. So this is the best way to create that really nice smooth blend, by building your colours up from light to dark. So we're going to focus this more in the crease now. So we're going to go for a slightly smaller brush, and this is the B11. So again, you can see if I compare the two, it is definitely smaller. And if I show you this way, so that way you're going to get more of a precise blend when you go with a smaller blending brush. So we're focusing this more in the crease now. So what I tend to do is tilt my head back and look into a mirror, so that way I can see where I'm applying it. And then again, like the hooded eyes trick, you can tilt your head forward looking in the mirror and just blend it slightly above the crease. So that way I'm just ensuring that I can see exactly where the eyeshadow is going to be. But because we had that lighter tone colour there first, the darker colour blends that a little bit easier. Because sometimes when you go straight in with a dark tone eyeshadow, it can be a lot harder to blend out and just not as smooth. So again, I kind of switch up the technique where I go in small little circular motions and then back and forth over the edges. So little circular motions wherever I put the product. And then when I go over the edges, I swipe it back and forth. And you can go back in with your first brush with no additional product and just help merge those two colours together. Wherever you put your brush first is going to be the darkest point. So basically, if you want it to be darkest on the outer corner, if you wiggle your brush there first, that's going to have the most pigment of colour. So as you can see, when I want the colour to be more precise, I keep it exactly where I want the darkest point. So we're applying that in the area between the lash line and the crease of the eye. And then obviously if you had hooded eyes, you would focus it more on that outer part where you can see when your eyes are looking forward. And again, the key thing here is to be very light-handed, because if you're light-handed, then you're going to ensure you get a nice light application, especially when you're working with darker colours, or if you're a beginner and you're kind of just starting out and practicing. The best way to be is to have a lighter hand, because then you're going to ensure you're not going to get too much product on there. Because the trick is, obviously, you can always add more. It's a lot harder to remove eyeshadow than to add it. So now that I've got my colour on my outer corner and I've deepened that up, I can then kind of start to blend it into the crease with no additional product. So if you're following the natural crease, then you're ensuring you're getting that right motion. And again, looking straight ahead, to ensure you can see the colour when your eye is fully open and relaxed. And you can go back in with your first colour with a little bit more product. If you see a line forming, that's when you can go back in with your first eyeshadow, just with a little bit more product, and just lightly run it over the edges. So where that darker colour meets the first colour, you're just merging the two together. So again, on the outer corner, kind of tiny little circular motions. So next, going into the ZODIAC palette, I'm going to take the eyeshadow Dark Matter. So this is amazing for smoky eyes because it is a black eyeshadow that doesn't go patchy and it doesn't fall down too much. And also, black eyeshadow can be super intimidating, and also it can be really hard to blend out. But the good thing about Dark Matter is that it is really smooth and creamy, so it just helps to blend it out that little bit easier. But also another thing with creating a kind of base before you go in with the darker colours, so because we've gone in with a light tone brown and then a medium tone, and now we're going to go in with our black, if we was to go in with our black straight away, it's going to be really difficult to blend out. So because we've got that tone, those tones underneath, it's just going to help the black blend into something and be a lot easier for you to apply on top of. So we're going to take our A13 because it's nice and dense and flat, and we're going to take a tiny amount of the Dark Matter eyeshadow. And again, with dark eyeshadows and you've got foundation on, just make sure you tap off any excess. But the trick is to go very lightly with a black eyeshadow or any kind of dark eyeshadow. Just take your time and go very slowly. Also, the trick with black, because it is so dark and pigmented, it will start to move and travel as you blend it out. So always apply it slightly lower than you think, because if you apply it too high and then you start to blend it out, that's when it can go a lot higher than you actually want it to. So we're going to lightly tap it on down into my lash line. So you're again creating kind of like a V shape on the outer part. So you can see just by adding a little bit more depth to the outer corner with the black, it just helps to smoke it out that little bit more. Okay, so now we're going to blend that black out. So because we don't want it to travel too far up, because we're keeping it in the very outer corner, what we're going to do is go in with a B10. So this is slightly bigger than the B11, as you can see. This is like a baby version of the B06. So it's still relatively small, but again, it's really nice. It's really nice and rounded and fluffy. So I'm going to take a touch of Nebula. So this was our second eyeshadow, and I'm gonna run it over the edges of where we put the black. So if you can see, I'm holding my brush at a 90-degree angle, because if we were to go like this, you then start to work the colour up. So as I was saying earlier, because black does tend to travel more when you blend it out, we're gonna have our brush at this angle, so we keep the darker eyeshadow where we put it. So we're just blending the edges. We don't want to move the darker colour too much. Okay, so for the lid colour, that is completely up to you. You could use a bronzy colour all over. You could go with a lighter colour. It's completely up to you. So for the inner corner, what we're going to do is use a little bit of concealer. Because we have blended our brown colour and it has dropped onto the lid a little bit, if we were to go in with a lighter colour, sometimes they don't stand out as much because you've got that dark colour underneath. So we just want to create a nice base for the lighter colour to sit on top of. So to do that, I'm going to use a little bit of concealer and an A28 brush. So start at the very inner part of your eye, and then whatever's left on your brush, bring it down and across. So to about a quarter of the way across. So you can just see, just by using a little bit of concealer, it just really brightens that area up. And also, if you have hooded eyes, the great thing about this step is you can create your own kind of crease. So you can go higher than your natural crease. So tilt your head back. And as you can see, I've also gone a little bit higher than my natural crease. So that way you're just giving the illusion of a larger eye, and you're just really enhancing your eye shape. You could go in with a shimmer like Constellation. This is a really nice eyeshadow to put on the inner corner. So I'm going to pop a little bit on the centre of the eye. You can see instantly by using a shimmer, because it highlights the area, it brings the area forward. And then when you apply shimmer, it is typically a little bit easier to use a flat brush because it just picks up a lot better. But you can use a fluffy brush if you wanted, like this, but just remember it won't pick up as much product because it is fluffy. So I'm going to move on to the lower lash line now. Okay, so not everyone likes eyeshadow underneath the eye. That is a complete personal preference. I'm going to show you anyway, just so you have the option. So we're going to use the exact same eyeshadows that we used through the crease, but this time we're actually going to start off with our darkest brown eyeshadow. So going back in with Nebula. So using our A13 again with Nebula, I'm going to press that into the lower lash line, and I'm going to take that all the way across the lower lash line. So the best way to do this is to look up into a mirror and just dab that eyeshadow into your lashes, and this really does make a difference with making your eyes stand out, and it really enhances the shape of your eye. So again, pressing it and also connecting it to the top and the corner of the eye. So now using an A12 brush, because you can kind of sweep underneath the eye or blend out your lower lash line and kind of smoke it out. So going back in with our first colour, which is Tide, and again using a very light hand because we don't want this bit to be too heavy. We just want to feather it out ever so slightly. Okay, so that is pretty much it. I'm going to go and do my other eye off camera, and then I'll be back to finish off. Okay, so I also went ahead and finished this eye, and I also applied some liner and lashes and some bottom mascara as well. Of course, you can finish the look however you would like. You can just whack on some mascara, but also, like I said earlier, you don't have to do every single step, but hopefully you can take elements and apply it to your own makeup routine, and hopefully you learn something. But yeah, that is basically everything from us. I will leave all the products that we used today in the description below, and all the brushes that we used as well. Also, let us know what you want to learn next, and don't forget to subscribe to stay updated. But that is everything from us. Thank you so much for watching, and you'll see us in our next one. Bye!